a fabulous history of the shoguns and samurai of Japan. The novel Shogun is apparently the story of an English sailor, John Blackthorne, the pilot of a Dutch ship, Erasmus, with a Dutch crew, who was shipwrecked in the spring of 1600 on the shores of the Izu Peninsula, on the beach of the village of Anjiro, over 100 kilometers south of the current Japanese capital, Tokyo. Japan, much desired by the survivors of a long and difficult expedition on the great oceans of the world, turns out to be not the hoped-for harbor, but closed country, hostile to foreigners, ruled by the military for whom life, especially for a foreigner, had no value. Blackthorne begins to desperately search for ways and means of survival, involving himself, thanks to his intelligence and physical and intellectual resources, in a process of such profound knowledge of the new society that he manages to penetrate the ranks of the ruling caste and secure the friendship and protection of one of the most powerful men in those lands, Toshio Toranaga, a great nobleman and military leader. He's also the hero of a touching love story with Mariko, a samurai wife and samurai woman who accompanies him permanently and has the mission of initiating him into the knowledge of the Japanese language and society, being also involved in the thicket of complicated intrigues of the struggle for power between the elders of the Japanese archipelago. Although it remains a work of fiction, Shogun is based on rigorous documentation, and some passages record succinctly and precisely real historical events presented as such as the Mongol invasions of 1271 and 1284, the arrival of the Portuguese in the archipelago, the history of the shogunate, some of the most famous battles of the second half of the 16th century, etc. Although the novel's action takes place between April and September 1600, the author makes extensive forays into the history of the 5 centuries that precede that moment. It is a turning point in Japanese history, at the end of secular developments whose consequences are felt to this day. These developments were triggered with the establishment of the shogunate. The shogunate is a military form of government, specifically Japanese hereditary, based on the samurai, the famous warriors of ancient Japan, under the conditions of the existence of a monarchical authority, nominally supreme, also hereditary. The shogun, the great general who subdues the barbarians, was nominally the supreme military commander and, in reality, the absolute ruler of the country. However, he exercised power in the name of the emperor, who entrusted him and his successors with the task of governing. The shogunate, like the imperial institution, experienced a similar evolution, many of the shoguns being only nominally the leaders of the country, the real power being exercised either by the regents, in the case of the Hojo regents, or by advisors from his entourage during the Edo period 1603 to 1867. The shogunate was established in 1192 and abolished in 1867, this period constituting the Japanese Middle Ages. It emerged against the backdrop of the weakening of the influence of the imperial court and the nobility at the court as a result of power struggles, Japanese society being marked by the persistence of semi-autonomous clans, also favored by the mountainous terrain, with few connecting routes between inhabited areas. Throughout the entire pre-modern history of Japan, clan leaders behaved like quasi-independent local monarchs, often in conflict with the central authority. Reflexes of this evolution can still be detected today, especially in the way of constituting and in the mechanism of functioning of factions within some political parties, and in the preservation of the clan spirit, in general, in the political and administrative life of the country, thanks to the fact that the current administrative division largely preserves the boundaries of the old administrative units. Dating back to the 6th century,